The first thing I noticed as a longtime fan of this series is that a Total War saga Troy is extremely and unabashedly stylish. The world is ringed by surreal, soaring mountains that suggest ancient Greek pottery. The battle resolution animation shows the opposing generals fighting theatrically under a heavenly spotlight. The color palette is perfect for making me feel transported to the Bronze Age world. And this personality seeps over into a fairly satisfying campaign as well. There are some cracks in this ornate amphora though, particularly when it comes to the AI. Creative Assembly has been getting better and better at faction design with almost every game and DLC pack it's released in the last few years, and Troy is no exception. As Achilles, you have the invigorating task of defending your title as the undisputed heavyweight champion of the Aegean. As Hector, you have to constantly compete for your dear father's affection with your annoying kid brother who got us into this mess in the first place, in hopes of eventually inheriting the city of Troy. Each leader I played felt distinct and interesting in terms of goals, campaign abilities, and fighting style. These heroes also have their own dramatic, story-based win conditions called Homeric victories that walk them through some of the highlights of their role in the Iliad. This is a great nod to the source material, which helps further differentiate each campaign, and it's great that it doesn't get in the way if you want to pursue a more traditional Total War victory instead. Sometimes answering Agamemnon's call to war can be a bit more trouble than it's worth.
Keep your courage, lion-hearted Achilles, for you know well that fortune favors the bold.
There are also some special discoverable objectives with unique rewards, like becoming Anax, basically a tribal king, of one of the map's several geographic areas. The map, as I mentioned, is absolutely stunning. From the lush, hilly valleys of the Peloponnese to the rocky, rugged islands of the Cyclades scattered across the wine-dark sea, every corner is a joy to explore. Undiscovered areas are covered in a beautiful, weathered texture like baked clay, with ancient writing floating across the surface forebodingly. Sailing into this unknown causes the edges to visually burn away. Everything about this world and this interface radiates personality. And on the ground, when the battle is joined, period-accurate mud brick houses and simplistic farms remind you just how far back in time we've traveled. Most historical strategy games act like nothing before Alexander the Great is even worth mentioning, so the novelty of a Bronze Age setting is refreshing and effective. Interacting with other leaders is often not as pleasant, though. While the convenient quick deal feature from Three Kingdoms makes a return, foreign leaders make a nuisance of themselves by spamming requests for absurdly lopsided trade deals or constantly asking for free gifts of resources while offering nothing in return. It's an issue that used to crop up in older Total War games, but I had thought we were past it by now. No, Lycomedes, you can't have 250 bronze for free. And you won't be able to next turn either. It's not that I can't afford it, though. It's possible to be producing enough food by turn 50 to trade for whatever else you need, and because the economy is so unbalanced, resources feel essentially infinite in the late game. These kinds of AI quirks extend to the battlefield as well, particularly with ranged units set to skirmish mode. All too often, it results in them getting stuck on the terrain or suicidally charging into the enemy melee troops for no clear reason, instead of attacking and falling back like they're supposed to. Epic heroes, likewise, will sometimes get stuck in an animation loop and be rendered useless, or do a 180 in the middle of a fray to launch a powerful area attack that only hits the cobblestones. Along with a handful of crashes to desktop when opening certain interface windows, this all makes it clear that this Odyssey could have used a little more polish. When the AI isn't being a bugbear, though, field battles can be great fun. Bows and cavalry, staples of most other Total War games, are more of a novelty in this distant era, which has forced the designers to get creative in shaping a new battlefield ecosystem. Even more so than usual, Troy's clashes are all about maneuvering, with lighter and more nimble armies able to gain the advantage against heavier, slower ones by being able to decide the where and when of the fighting. And the battle maps are excellently designed for this, with the best choke points and flanking routes usually located a brisk march away from either side's starting zone. Being able to get to them first can make a huge difference. Siege battles are a bit less pleasant. Most of the time, the only siege weapons you'll have access to are battering rams, and scaling the walls with ladders can be borderline suicidal. If you have the luxury of time, it's almost always better to surround a city and wait for them to starve themselves into submission. This is accurate for the era, but it can also take away from the drama and momentum of a campaign as your conquests turn into waiting games. There are several other things I found counterintuitive as a longtime fan of the series, but they fell into place nicely once I could see past my preconceptions. Two-handed spearmen, for example, are essentially the replacement to heavy shock cavalry, and should be used for rear and flanking charges, not at all like how we're used to using spearmen in other Total Wars. Likewise, managing the positioning of skirmish troops while keeping an eye on everyone's stamina bars can turn the tide in big ways. It definitely takes some getting used to, but is plenty satisfying once you do. And despite being so infantry-focused, the diversity between factions and even within a given faction's roster offers plenty of options to pursue different playstyles. It may not be up to the grandeur of Three Kingdoms or Warhammer 2, but a Total War saga Troy is a significant step up from the previous saga game, Thrones of Britannia. Troy is simply dripping with style and offers exciting, diverse campaign objectives that enthusiastically retell the timeless tale of the Trojan War and its iconic characters. There are enough technical missteps, particularly with the campaign, economy, and battle AI, that it's still vulnerable to a sharp jab in the heel. But with a bit of post-launch love to clean all of that up, it could certainly take its place among the Total War pantheon. For more strategy, check out our reviews of Other Side and Desperados 3, and for everything else, keep it right here on IGN.